Right off the edge of the cliff there was a waterfall that came down, and they were able to get that water, and they had a irrigation system that they funnel down to the valley where you see the green trees, where the orchard is now is where the garden used to be. Mm-hmm. So they planted the usual crops that you would think that Indians plant in this part of the world.
Corn and beans.
Corn and beans, and squash.
And cotton.
And cotton. Yeah. The corn that they grew, and we found this in the field. Yeah. So they were farmers, they were hunters, and they were gatherers. So they were able to gather whatever Mother Nature provided for them. And right behind you is a pinyon pine tree. Okay, and that has some really nice flavorful nuts. So they would gather the nuts from the tree. Had the prickly pear and the prickly pear cactus and the berries. So they used that as well. And the big thing was they harvested agave. There used to be a lot of agave here. It's mostly farmed out. We feel like when they left it here in 1275, early 1300s, they left the area. And we feel that they left here because there was a drought. So they could no longer farm and their resources had been depleted. So there's a couple of theories why they left. The Hopi, which are ancestors of these people, they tell us that they left because they were divinely instructed to do so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So these people became absorbed when they moved from here because of drought, and they moved further down into the valley where the river is. So they moved closer to water, and they had, like I said, they had little communities throughout the Verde Valley that they were just able to join there with their other people. One of the things I started to say that they farmed is the agave. Mm-hmm. And you guys know what we do with agave today? It's sweet, right? Mm-hmm. So you put it on your pancakes, right? Pancake syrup? You ever have any pancake syrup? Or the adults.
We put it in tea.
Yeah, we put it in tea. Okay, Wanaki, which is off to the west.
We passed the sign for it.
Yeah.
How far away is that?
It's about 7 miles further down the road. So anyway, these people lived all in this area, and there are, like I said, there's documented sites and there's other sites that are protected, but they're not open for public viewing, and they're all over this valley because they lived here for like 700 years, from about 700 AD to 1400 AD. Okay. They lived in this particular structure from 1100 to 1275 AD. We believe that there were like 60 to 80 people who lived here at any one time. There were 20 different little apartments. At the very end over there is you can't see it from here, but it's a lower structure. That was the granary or the pantry or the cellar, whatever, and that's where they stashed their food and to keep it safe from all the critters. Yeah, they had to bury it and they had to cover the top so they could protect their food. The girls grew older and they got marrying age. They would just build another little apartment and another one and another one. They kept building around. So at any one time, 60 to 80 people lived here. And they lived here for about 3 generations. At the top here, if you look behind you, you can look up and see these 2 large circles. They're white. They're on the wall things.
Oh, okay.
And again, it's felt that these are clan. They're clan symbols of the 2 peoples that lived here.
The first apartment.
Yeah.
Look above the apartment up on the wall. There's like stamps.
Be careful.
It's very fibrous, and so they couldn't do that. So they would dig out the agave hearts, which weigh like 30 pounds. They're great big. They dig out a whole bunch of those. They would build a pit. They would start a fire in there. They would line it with rocks and build a fire, get it all nice and hot, and they'd put all the agave hearts in there. They'd cover it all back up, let it sit for 4 days and roast. And roast and roast and roast. And at the end of the 4 days, they would dig it up, and they'd probably invite all their relatives that were close by, and they might have a big party. And they would eat the agave. So this agave has been baking for 4 days, and in the process, it's gotten like really nice and sweet and syrupy, and they would suck the agave out of the, and this is, the inside is filled with this fiber. So they would suck all the juice, all the sweet stuff out, and they would spit this out as a spitball.
Ancient spitball.
An ancient spitball. Want to hold it? Yeah. But that was
Sonowan people. They lived here in the Verde Valley. And the point is that the images that appear here predate the Sonowan people. So these go back thousands of years before the Sonowan people. Now, there are Sonowan, so this is considered a Sonowan imagery, as is these elements here are considered as Sonowan. But the really oldest stuff, if you want to get up close, are these scratches that appear in here. And if you see, the scratches are in a grid pattern. And this is seen throughout the world, where these scratches appear in cross-hatching, it's called, or this grid pattern. And so it's a consistent element seen throughout the world. And the thought is that everything you see up here was put on here for a reason, to indicate that a ceremony of some sort occurred here. So it could be a ceremony of magic, asking for rain or asking for a successful hunt, or it could be a ceremony of a young person becoming an adult, what's called a coming of age ceremony. That could be. Or the other thing is the belief that it's perhaps a storytelling. So again, what you see in archaic tends to be the squiggly lines and the dots and basic geometric patterns. And the squiggly lines that come vertically are generally interpreted as being a rain or a water image. So again, maybe they're asking for rain here, or maybe they're thanking the spirits for rain, and that's why they put these elements on the wall. Then the next major grouping tends to be these reddish purple. You've got a grouping here, and then you've got a grouping here, somewhat nomadic people, and that they were moving around a lot, following maturity of plants and movement of game. And this group here actually polished the rock in addition to putting the paint on there. So this is about a 4,000 to 5,000 BC time frame when they have the reddish purple used on there. It's worn by a young girl who's of childbearing age but not yet married. So that's who wears their hair like that. So that's another one of these links between the Hopi and the Sonowan. Then you've got the charcoal that appears here associated with the Yavapai people. The Yavapai people come here after this, as the Sonowan are leaving, so they show up late 1300s. 4000 BC, round numbers, archaic people, dots, squiggles, geometric patterns, looks like a checkerboard almost, imagery of a journey. Again, this one we're not sure if this is as old as these down here, whether that's a BC handprint or not. It's a very small handprint, so the thought is it might be a young person here for a coming of age ceremony, becoming an adult, is what they would, and we know that Indians have come here for that. We've had Indians that show up now and say they were brought here. Probably the one that gets the most interest is this grouping that appears up here. Again, Sonowan time frame. Sonowan were planters, and they raised crops, they lived in permanent dwellings, so they would have some interest in seasonal changes for planting and harvest cycles, and also for ceremonies. So thought to be a solar calendar. You've got the sun up above here, the white wavy line, and then you've got solid white here. So he took this and he turned it around, so the hump on the left matches up with the rock on the right. So here's the sun coming up. Here's the sun coming up, one black triangle furthest south on the winter solstice. Sun comes up 2 occasions on the equinox over the third pattern of rocks on 2 occasions, March and September. And the sun in this position just beyond Bear Mountain furthest north on the summer solstice. So it appears to be a seasonal calendar. And calendars do appear pretty regularly in Indian art sites where there are planters, etc. And again, it's either a planting calendar or perhaps just a ceremonial calendar as to when they have ceremonies, etc. They think that they crush it into a powder and then mix it with animal fat to create the paint. When I was up here, this had water in it. It comes up from a drip up above here and fills it in. So it's a belief is that that's what attracted people to live here, is that this would very often have water in it, and so it'd be very area of a lot of shelter and water, they believe, is what attracted people to come to this location over the centuries. They have it every year, and it's called the snake dance. And what they do is they go out into the desert, and the snake priests go out and they capture rattlesnakes. They bring the rattlesnakes back, and they have them in the village for 7 to 10 to 14 days until the dance occurs. And then the young men in the village will dance with the snake in their mouth, and the snake priest will stroke it with an eagle feather to keep it calm. When they're done, they will then bathe the snake in cornmeal and then take it out into the desert and let it loose. And the idea of the ceremony that's been going on for centuries, they believe then the snake will go to the underworld and tell the spirits how well treated it was on the surface world, and that they'll be blessed with rain in the coming growing season. Pitchfork here. Our archaeologist believes that there was at one time a human form up above here. And he says it kind of corroborates the Hopi oral history. The oral history of the Hopi, they believe we now live on the fourth world. They believe the prior 3 worlds were destroyed because the people weren't righteous enough. But the righteous people were allowed to survive by going underground and living underground. Their oral history tells them that some people, when they went to live underground, lived underground as lizards, and they grew tails. And so our archaeologist believes this is part of the storytelling or the oral history of the Hopi, telling of the lizard people who lived underground. So that's the legs with a tail there. Or the animal fat absorbed the carbon and turned them black. So it was originally white paint turned black. And this is the main twosome right here. This is a woman. You can see the braid in her hair, hands on her hips, legs in the birthing position. Right below her is an animal. So this is seen in many places in the Southwest. Many Indians call her the mother of the animals. The symbolism is she's giving birth to the game animals of the world. This artist has a variety of animals around her, as if she's given birth to these animals here. Other Indian cultures will call this the birthing site or the birthing symbol. And so there's some belief that where this would appear is where women would come to give birth underneath here, to get the good health and the good spirit. But here's a really nice eagle head. That's all natural. So that just is all filled in because of the carbon people. So this is called the Sand Clan of the Hopi. And the Hopi have what's called a matriarchal society, which means that when, number one, they're not allowed to marry within their clan. So a male has to marry a woman from a different clan. And when he marries a woman from the different clan, he then becomes a member of her clan. So it's based upon the woman as opposed to the man. And so if he's a member of the Water clan and he marries a woman from the Sand clan, he then becomes a member of the Sand clan. So this is the Sand clan of the Hopi. So the Hopi would argue that this is where that this is a clan symbol for the Sanawan, or it could be they were here for some storytelling ceremony of some sort, or again, some magic ceremony of some sort. But the archaeologist said this is called the carried flute player, one of only 3 in the Southwest. There's the
Bye.